Lucis Trust, a non-profit, non-political, and non-sectarian organization on the roster of the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations, and concerned with the establishment of world cooperation and goodwill, presents Inner Sight with your host, Robert Anderson. He, with Sarah and Dale McKechnie, President and Vice President of Lucis Trust, will discuss philosophical and spiritual topics essential to everyday life. Now here's your host, Robert Anderson.
Welcome. Inner sight is simply seeing that which is always present, but not yet fully recognized. You have, within you, the ability to see yourself and the world around you in a new way with new eyes. So stay with us, and together we'll look at the world and ourselves with inner sight. Our topic for today: more thoughts on the etheric body. Before we explore this topic, I'd like to say a few words about Alice Bailey, the founder of the Lucis Trust. Lucis Trust sponsors this show. Alice Bailey wrote 24 books of esoteric philosophy, and those 24 books are the main inspiration for the dialogue that you'll hear on this show. The following thought is also from the works of Alice Bailey. There is nothing in the universe, solar, planetary, or the various kingdoms in nature, which does not possess an energy form, subtle and intangible, which controls and conditions the outer physical body. This is the etheric body. The etheric body, of all things, is the conductor of energy. Is that right?
Yes, it's an energy conductor. The etheric body is basically nothing more than energy, but at the same time nothing less than energy. As we've said in this discussion of this subject, there are millions and millions of threads of force which are conducted throughout the etheric body of any particular form, whether we're talking about a human being or an inanimate object or a solar system. Everything that has a form is possessed of an energy body, and those streams of energy affect the physical body, swinging it into activity according to the type and grade of energy that is dominating the etheric body at any particular time. This is where the creative aspect comes in, where the potential for evolution enters in. But the main point to keep in mind is that all physical bodies, not just of human beings, but of any object, the physical body is the effect. It's just the outpicturing of conditions going on in the etheric body, which are descriptive of the kind of energy that is being conducted through that etheric body. So this has consequences for health and for the psychological state, if we're talking about a human being, and for relationships and so on.
Yes, relationships in particular. It's another way of looking at relationships, because, if you think about it, that opening thought is a very sweeping statement that includes every manifested physical form in the universe is molded on this thing called the etheric body, or the etheric energy. And it's the basis for relationships, if you think about it, because we're all thrown together in this vast sea of etheric energy, or energies flowing through the etheric network, and that is the basis for the very subtle layers of relationship that it brings us all together as one. It's the basis of unity, in fact.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the phone company knows this. They say we're all connected. On that. I think they mean on a different level than the etheric body. But really, that's an outpicturing, we could say, of what we're trying to describe on etheric levels.
Well, sure, and
Lines of transmission, communication.
That's right, and that's what the etheric body does. It's a carrier for all the energies of whatever quality is passing through our physical bodies at the time.
Yes, the dominant energy to which the individual human being or the group or the nation or the world as a whole reacts to is what will condition the etheric body. And that's an interesting thought, because just this week I was listening to a news analyst reporting from Iowa, I suppose because of the political campaign that's underway out there. And she said the major concern in Iowa among voters is terrorism. And I thought to myself, Iowa, when was the last time the terrorists did anything bad to Iowa? Maybe I haven't heard it on the news, but the good people of
Iowa.
Yeah. The good people of Iowa are mainly concerned about the threat of terrorism. And here we are in New York City and London, plodding off to work every day of the week, getting on the subways, on the tube, if you're British, going about your day, probably not overwhelmed by the idea of terrorism. You try to stay alert and mindful, but until they come and get us, we're going to live our lives. We have things to do, and
best approach, I think, too.
Yes. So it suggested to me that this fear of terrorism, this constant reiteration of the threat of terrorism, really makes an impact on human consciousness, even among people that are very unlikely to be threatened by it. And that, to me, is an example of how the etheric body can conduct an energy, a force, in this case an emotional force, fear, that the whole state, the whole region reacts to.
Right, and it's so often the body through which all the reactive energies flow, and we see it flowing in, say, mobs, public opinion, and where a mob takes over, there is this emotional energy that kind of takes over the whole group of people, and because they're all related together through this etheric network, that energy is just electric, and literally it is electric, and it flows to everyone in the group, and that's why a mob can become such a volatile group of people in so short a time.
And that would explain the success of dictators and tyrants of all sorts. Who was the man who convinced his flock of followers in Guyana to commit suicide? Jim Jones.
Yeah, right.
It would explain how they can sway the minds or the astral, emotional bodies of their followers, because these tyrants, these dictators, are more dominant. They are more forceful, and the people who follow them are more receptive and less able to keep their own center. But it also would explain how public opinion works, and this is increasingly a phenomenon with the growing mental development of humanity through increasing literacy and education. Public opinion can ignite a lot of human minds with a similar thought, a similar viewpoint, for good or for bad. But the real masters of advertising and of political campaigns are very adept at working with that phenomenon of public opinion for their own ends.
Right, and here again is another example of the etheric network. It's not just our bodies are not independent little networks all in themselves. I mean, they are, but we are all connected to the larger etheric network of the whole planet, and therefore we are a part of a much larger system, and that's why these thoughts, these ideas, which are just energy forms in themselves, are carried along in this etheric network, and they can be transmitted very quickly and picked up and very quickly